The badge says VW, but we swear it's an Audi. Those headlights, that trunk shape, the exhaust tips, well, they are made by the same auto group after all.
Hey y'all, come look at this.
It shouldn't come to a surprise that the Jetta Mk7 has an uncanny resemblance to the A4. VW even said they're based on the same platform. However, there's one dead giveaway: the wheels. Comparable Audi sedans got better wheels. The designs and specs are undoubtedly better suited to a modern four-door. If you own a Jetta, it probably came with some weak-ass 16s or 17s. So what options do you have? That's what we're going to explore in this video. We put together a list and a guide of our favorite aftermarket wheel and tire combinations featuring OEM Plus to stanced ass fitment. All right, I'm gonna take a break here to do the normal YouTube stuff, to remind you to hit that like button, hit the comment button, throw us an opinion, what car we should do next, what wheel brand we should do next, what we should talk about, and of course, hit that subscribe button. We couldn't make these videos without you guys, and we enjoyed making them, so please hit the like button, do anything, please. This is all about the A7 Jetta and Jetta GTI, 2019 to present, better known as the Mk7. Being a fairly recent generation, you won't find a ton of fitment info yet. Nevertheless, we found some nice builds from early adopters. Before we look into them, let's get into some basic specs. So, like other German cars, it's of course a 5x1 12 rocking an M14 by 1.5 bolt thread, center bore of 57.1, and a lug torque of 89 pounds. Don't let the homie Aja torque it because they'll have his wheel fall off. There are 4 options for the OEM alloy wheels on the Jetta Mk7. The GTI came with an 18 by 7.5 plus 49. Snowflake came with a 16 by 6.5 plus 45. We're dubbing them this because they're kind of like the classic Mark II Snowflakes. They also came with a 17-inch 17 by 7 plus 46, and there are 2 designs with the same spec. This is probably what your Jetta came with. Only the GTI wheels come close to properly filling out the fender arches. Only a few builds use the GTI OEM wheels with coilovers or air suspension, which produces a pretty decent look, but we think improvements can be made. So let's recommend some aftermarket wheels for your Jetta. Square setups, i.e. same width front and rear, are the most common on these cars. While they're factory 16-inch wheels, with aftermarket, 17-inch is the absolute minimum for obvious stylistic reasons. We have seen diameters between 17s and 20s, but there's a strong uptake of 18s and 19s. The design of the wheel can also alter how large it looks. Dished wheels with a large steplet often look a bit smaller. Keep this in mind when sizing your own wheels. So 17 to 20s, what about width and offset? From entry-level setups like OEM Plus to Flush, we recommend a 7.5 to 9-inch wide with an offset of 35 millimeters to 50. To get flush fitment with minimal work, the most common size is 8.5 plus 45, give or take a few millimeters. With these specs, you can run a square sidewall tire around 235/40 and not have to worry about rubbing unless you're going super low on coils. For more aggressive stance fitment, coils or air suspension will be a must. On top of this, you'll need to roll and possibly pull your fender. With the correct mods, you can make larger sizes and or lower offsets work. Throw on some stretch tires and you can achieve that fender to lip look that you always wanted and all your Instagram builds do. If these terms sound like a foreign language, see our deep dive on all types of wheel fitment down below. What about staggered setup? There's no reason you can't do it, but the shape and track width of the car are geared towards squared setups. Normally, with a staggered setup on a Jetta or other front-wheel drive car, you'll need extra rear camber. So be prepared to add adjustable camber arms if this is the route that you want to go and make it look right. Lower that thing. The Mk7 suffers with wheel gap, as do most cars. Almost all the cars we found with aftermarket wheels were lowered in one way or another. Just don't cut the springs. That was horrible.
Quite so horrible in all her life.
If they aren't, the owner swears they are about to. Next week, bro, coils are in the mail. Don't be that guy. If you're gonna get aftermarket wheels, at least throw on some springs. There's some pretty good budget options for that as well. And hey, we have some on our site, threepiece.us.
Nice.
Lowering springs are an affordable way to close that wheel gap. H&R, Eibach, New Speed, there are plenty of brands all for under $400. Okay, for coilovers, if you want to run a low and aggressive fitment, enjoy a track day, or otherwise do some spirited driving, you'll want to look at coilovers. Similar to lowering springs, there's already a wide variety to choose from. Silver Neo Maxes have a nice spring rates for most users, a 9K, 5K, stiff enough for most types of fitment, but not too much for daily driving. All right, what all VW owners eventually do, air suspension. If you want to get that proper fender to lip fitment, you could go all the way out with an air suspension setup. Airlift performance kits are by far the most popular option for the Mk7 so far. Really the only option. I mean, there's probably a couple other more, DN2, whatever. Okay, so we're gonna start with OEM and flush fitment setups. The cars that have these setups require minimal work. Most have lowering springs, but stock suspension would also technically work. Just probably won't look as nice as that fender arch gap is pretty bad. Coilovers will work fine as well as long as you're not slamming your car to the ground. By replicating one of these, you can enjoy zero rubbing with minimal or no fender work. You might have to do the fender mod because the screw, whatever. 19-inch wheels fit this 2020 GLI without any headaches. You'll notice it's lowered, but just on Eibach Sportline lowering springs. At this ride height, there's no rubbing as well. It's on Michelin Pilot Sport 4S's to complete the aesthetic. Plus, they look really good on their own. Overall, it's a pretty solid wheel and tire combination that is a perfect daily drivable car. Here's an almost identical setup, except it's on an 18-inch wheel instead of 19. Both have 8.5 wide wheels with negligible differences in offset. Even with 3mm spacers, hey, 3mm is enough, okay?
Okay.
The tires are bumped up from a 235/40 to a 225/45. Despite the smaller wheels, the tires compensate to make the effective rolling diameter less than a ½ inch different. This is a good example of using a larger tire with a smaller wheel or vice versa to fill out the fender arches. This car is also lowered, but on H&R lowering springs instead of Eibach. Like we said, 18 to 19 and 8.5 plus 45 is kind of the sweet spot. Here's another setup with these specs. The difference between this 19 GLI and the previous two is ride height. This one is on BC Racing coilovers, allowing the owner to set it at low slung but still drivable height. This car is on some pretty skinny 30 sidewall tires, and tires this small definitely help to reduce that rubbing and scrubbing. The overall stance is similar, just a bit lower. We love the factory optioned roof rack that these cars came with as well, so it adds that extra style and stance look to the vehicle. Despite the chassis being relatively new, some Mark 7 owners have already been pushing the boundaries. These setups are no longer plug and play, so expect at a minimum to roll and pull some fenders, even possibly some cutting. These cars will either be static on coils or fitted with air suspension. So we said 20 inches at the beginning of the video. Will they actually work? Yes, but only with thin tires. You're looking at 35s or even 30 aspect ratios depending on the width. 225/35/20s have been done a few times, maybe 235/35/20 depending on the tire brand. Anything wider will require a 30 sidewall. And tires this skinny don't take too kindly to potholes. Other than these BBS FIRs being a large diameter, the rest of the specs aren't too much different. Of course, these are baller wheels for baller budget, starting at about $2,500. The same specs will apply to more budget-friendly options and, well, just about any other wheel on the market. Depends on what your wallet's looking like. If it's a little thicker, a little fatter, depends exactly where you want to. So, do you like dished wheels? These last two should be right up your alley. This 2019 Jetta SE is running a squared set of custom spec'd radiate wheels. The specs are a bit more aggressive than what we've previously seen, and to achieve this fender to lip look, this car is on air suspension from Airlift Performance. When aired up, there's no rubbing or scrubbing, and aired down, you struggle to slide a playing card between the fender and wheel. Don't drive it when it's aired down, that's common sense. As you can imagine, considerable rolling and some pulling was still needed. It's all about that perfect fitment. If you're about that life, here's what you can do with a Jetta. This GLI Autobahn is rocking the only staggered set of wheels on our list. Moreover, the only JDM set of wheels. Weds crans. As if it wasn't clear, this took some time and effort to fit. 10.5 rears, lots of camber adjustment, air suspension, and plenty more just needed to tuck that rear. This would be nearly undrivable if it was static. We still have a bunch of other wheels like crans on our website, so I recommend you checking them out in our vintage wheel category. Staggered wheels on a VW aren't for everyone, but this example certainly pulls it off well. If you get dished wheels, you need something with at least some lip. Dished wheels come with a typical 8.5 width and will probably give you awkwardly small lips. Hence why the cars with dished wheels are at least 9.5 wide. So to wrap everything up, despite the Mark 7 platform being fairly new, it seems there are already standard go-to specs for aftermarket wheels. 18s to 19s with 8.5 plus 45 seems to be the sweet spot for daily driven and weekend warrior types. There are also some other examples like the ones we saw of owners fitting some lower offset and wider wheels. If you also have a Jetta Mark 7, want to be unique, well, it's not too hard. The chassis is new enough that it's not difficult to do something never before seen. Maybe some USDM wheels, triple step BBS RSs, the possibilities are endless. If you come up with a fresh look, be sure to share it on our vehicle gallery where you will be automatically into our our fitment battles that we have monthly. Help others with their fitment. By adding your car to our vehicle gallery, you can help others dial in their perfect fitment. And with the fitment battles, you too can win cool prizes like the DSXs that aren't in this building anymore. But again, if you enjoyed the video, make sure to hit like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.